Hi, I'm Marcus Coward, and this is Wake Up New Bedford. I'm here with Manny DeBrito. Manny, thanks for being here.
How you doing, Marcus? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. No, it's a pleasure.
Appreciate the invite.
No, of course. And I mean, you're not a first time here or doing an interview, but thanks for taking the time to be here.
Yeah, a little bit different. Usually I'm here on election matters and stuff like that.
Sure.
I always love coming in. These guys are great. They do a great job.
So I know you're a very humble person and you always want the spotlight on someone else, on what you're doing, but hopefully we can, shed some details, a little bit about yourself. Hopefully you're okay with talking a little bit about yourself.
My life is an open book, man. Maybe you'll get a little something. I don't know.
And so for those who don't know you, which isn't going to be a lot of people who don't know you in New Bedford. Most people know you. So you're from here? Like, talk a little bit about the schools that you started with.
So born and raised in New Bedford.
Okay.
My parents came from Brava, Cape Verde.
Sure.
So I'm first generation here.
Okay.
And we grew up in the west end of New Bedford, Pocket Mill Street, like right on Route 6. So I'm a West End kid. Growing up, I had a great childhood, a lot of great friends. So one of the things that, coming from a Cape Verdean family, my parents, neither one of them had an opportunity to really go to school. So they both have like a 4th grade education. So for myself and my brothers, education was like a big thing. So we all went to Catholic school. We all went to Holy Family, Holy Name. Back in the day, the 3 of us. And then when I graduated from there, I went to Bishop Stang. I'm the only one that ended up at Bishop Stang. My brothers
Sure.
went to New Bedford High. My parents realized it gets really expensive.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I graduated from there, and then from there I went on to Bridgewater State College, and that's where I graduated from.
Sure.
And again, I just say, like, I had great experiences coming up, and I'm still friends with people that I went to kindergarten with at Holy Family.
Sure.
And, you remain close with those folks.
So you're not the first Cape Verdean, either first generation or from the island, who have said that they've had limited education. And so was education not as pushed in Cape Verde, or is it not like as advanced? Or?
So it's not as advanced first, and then like my dad, he was, had to go to work with my grandfather.
Sure.
It's obviously a 3rd world country. So my grandfather actually was like 6'4". My
Sure.
dad is 5 foot nothing.
Okay.
So he tells a story of going out working with my grandfather and painting, and they'd go through like, the brush and everything, and you couldn't even see my father. Like, he was just that small.
Yeah.
Imagine 8 years old working with your dad in like a full-time job to
Yeah.
provide for the family.
Yeah.
So that was, wasn't really pushed there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just wasn't one of those things. And similar for my mom, you know what I mean? Just basically a 4th grade education.
Sure.
So, you come to the United States, and the dream of yours is to provide a better life for your family. And how do you do that? And that's through education.
Sure.
So one of my aunts was a lot younger than my dad, so she was able to like go through the New Bedford school system, go to school and all that. So she's actually the first one that graduated from college.
Okay.
But because my dad pushed her to continue to,
Sure.
and she lives on the West Coast. She was like the head nurse at UC Davis. Like, so, they always just pushed the education.
Okay.
Also because they didn't have the opportunity to get it for themselves.
Sure. I'm so glad that they did, because I mean, it's so important, especially nowadays. It's hard to do anything without a degree.
Exactly.
So
yeah, my brothers and I, we all graduated from college.
That's amazing.
My brother Mark is assistant principal at New Bedford High School,
Okay.
and he's also the head football coach. My youngest brother Johnny lives out in Denver, Colorado.
Sure.
And he's real estate, and he's doing great things. And again, he graduated from UMass Amherst. My brother Mark from Bentley University, where he was like this stud football player out there,
Sure.
All-American, like just, we've had some great opportunities because of our education, so.
Sure. And then what degree did you end up walking away with from Bridgewater?
Management science.
management science?
So my parents owned like a couple of small businesses, but they weren't business people. They were just hard workers.
Yeah, for sure.
So, my thing was like I was forced to help them at an early age because they just didn't have like the education. So financial stuff and doing all that stuff, I would help them. So I always thought like, hey, I'm gonna start my own business. I'm gonna be a business person. So, that's what I ended up doing. And going to school for management was just, it was great. It was an opportunity to maybe further that. And I saw the struggles my parents had. A lot of people think, oh, your parents own businesses, you guys were rich or something. And I'm like, they barely made any money. It was like, because all they knew was hard work. So it was like enough to keep the lights on and to pay people, you know what I mean? And, it just watching them, do that to provide for the family was always like inspirational to me.
Sure. And so, did you imagine just using your degree to help them, or do you have a dream of starting your own business as well?
At first it was like my own business, and my whole thing was like always to make my family proud, right? Like, my father always emphasized like that last name means something. Yeah. Like a lot of men before you, a lot of people before you worked really hard to give us a good name. We don't want you to ruin that. So like I always carry that with me, and like I impart that on my sons too. Your first name is yours, that last name belongs to your grandfather, your great-grandfather, all of these people, your uncles. So it's important to me that we maintain that. Sure. When people, when you talk about it and you mention our name, it comes with like, oh man, they're just great people. Yeah, right. People will come up and, oh, I love your parents. They're like parents to me. They let my family put food on the tab. Or, my parents had a little bar. Oh yeah, I'd go and they'd allow me to drink without paying, and I'd, tab. And they would just look out for me, or my mom would cook and feed people that were there drinking all day to make sure they had something to eat. Wow. You know what I mean? Like, so wherever I go, people are like, oh, your parents are just amazing people. And again, that means a lot to me. It really, really does.
And really helped create a sense of community, it sounded like.
Yeah. And, and again, being everyone's parent, because you're feeding them, or, people would say, oh, I need some advice. I'm looking for your dad, and then those same people, come to look for me, and looking at me like that. Like, again, it's just people from humble beginnings, humble means to come in and just impact people's lives like that. It's a great thing. It really, really is. I'm super proud to be from my family. Sure.
And are those businesses still going, or did they have to move on? Or
they moved on, and like I said, they weren't business people. So the store.
What were the businesses, by the way?
So they had a fish market in the West End. Okay. Right next to where United Front Homes is, right on the corner of Chancery and Kempton, was a fish market. Okay. They knew nothing about owning a store or fish for that. My father had worked on oil tankers, and he was gone like 6 to 9 months out of the year. And as we got older, and of course living in a impoverished neighborhood and stuff like that, not that we were getting in trouble, but he was more and more worried about what we could be getting into. So he had retired and stayed home. My youngest brother is about 10 years younger, so he wanted to watch him grow up because he missed so much with us. So the store didn't work out. They just decided to focus more on the bar. And they started working. They've had that for years and years. And about 14 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. Oh, no. So he was in and out of the hospital. He was given 6 months to live at the time. So we were forced to sell the business. Sure. And I remember it's so funny, like, so I would take over, and I'm looking at the receipts, I'm trying to do the financials, and it's just numbers written on napkins. There was no spreadsheet, there was no...
That sounds crazy.
It's crazy, but like, that's what they knew. And again, they just knew the meaning of hard work. Yeah. So, happy to say my dad survived, and he's still here with us to this day.
That's amazing.
And he's like, I tell him, I'm like, Dad, you're like a robot or an alien. Like, people aren't made like you. And like, I was thinking about this lately. We were in the hospital rooms, me and my brothers and my dad. And I'm the smallest DeBrito son, which I'm not a small dude. At all. And my father's tiny, and we're sitting in this doctor's office in Boston, and he's telling us all that my dad has 6 months left to live. The 3 humongous horses are all crying. And my dad like looked him in the eye and was like, cancer never met anyone like me. Like, I got more life to live.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, like, this is my superhero.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter how small he is, you know? And my dad was like very much the disciplinarian because he had to be. And I just feel like at that moment, he decided to live, you know, because everything was just so dedicated to providing and working. And my father just turned into a completely different person. And, you know, it's amazing. I'm so blessed to still have them
Absolutely.
in my life. You know, they are truly special people, truly.
Sure. And so, rewinding a little bit, when you were younger, did you ever want to do anything else? Were you really into sports, or did you have a dream of what you wanted to be?
I always loved basketball. So
Okay.
basketball was like my thing, but I had like no formal coaching. I really didn't have my first like coaching until I was a junior in high school.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it was like, we just played. Like we go to the parks and play against grownups.
Sure.
And if you don't get better, you're not going to be out there.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, I was the kind of guy that did it because I liked it.
Sure.
And like I was always good at stuff without putting 100% effort. School, you know, just pretty much everything, sports. And like now I look back, I'm like, wow, if I would have really like applied myself with focus, but you know, I wasn't that guy. You know, I love being creative. I love being with my friends. I love to laugh.
Sure.
So it was like, you know, I don't even think I really knew what I wanted to do or anything. It was just like, okay, you graduate from high school, you're gonna go to college, you're gonna get your degree. You know, I started working at Polaroid Corporation back in the day.
Sure.
And kind of advanced through that company. So it was just like, you know, I was just turning into like, just a worker, just like an
just living life.
employee.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, you know, trying to make as much money as I could as like a 20-something-year-old.
Sure.
Then I was working full-time at Polaroid, going to school full-time. And I was like, you know what? Now I graduated, I want to, you know, work in finance. I want to work in management. And Polaroid didn't really see that for me. There wasn't any, advancement opportunities. So I ended up leaving that job and starting to work in Boston for a lot less money.
Sure.
But on that career track. So I took a job as an accountant for State Street. So, you know, I think that's where like I kind of pivoted towards finance and doing that. And I loved working in Boston for these companies. Like it was just a lot of fun.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're more of a numbers guy than maybe like a history or English person, you'd say?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
really?
definitely a numbers guy. I have a very creative side to me. I can't draw for anything. So like
Different kind of creativity.
conceptually, like
Yeah,
I just,
sure.
you know, have these concepts and ideas and, you know, I'll be able to explain what they are and then some like an artist or, you know, whoever will be able to just complete that for me.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's kind of me. Like numbers were easier for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of, like I said, I enjoyed that job. I like working in an office.
Okay.
So yeah, you know, I kind of gravitated towards that.
And then when did you end up in City Hall? Yeah. So, and for the people who don't know, what is your official position in City Hall?
So I'm the election commissioner for
Election
the city
commissioner.
of New Bedford. So I
Yes.
run the department. I run all the elections in the city. Yeah, I've been there since 2017.
Wow.
And, you know, again, just serving the city and working and again, being in the place I love and being able to work 5 minutes from home as opposed to commuting 5 hours a day, especially when you have kids and, you know, I'm a coach and, you know, I'm married. So, you know, I was trying to get closer to home. And someone said, well, the election commissioner job is open. I had no idea what a commissioner does or whatever. And I'm like, okay, let me read, you know, the job requirements or whatever. And I'm reading through it. I'm like, hey, I could do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I decided to apply for it. I interviewed with the mayor, HR, and they decided to hire me.
Sure.
And yeah, it's been an interesting ride, you
Sure.
know what I mean? I never saw that at all coming.
Yeah.
Not even, you know, in my wildest dreams. I really didn't. And then like my community work started when I was coaching. I started coaching my oldest son, Avery, who's 26 now.
Yeah.
Way back in the day. And then I just started, you know, wanting to continue to give back in that way too. So being here and working here and being able to do that, being close to home, it just, you know, it was the perfect fit for me.
And so Avery also went to Bishop Stang, right?
Yes.
And so did he have that idea on his own, or did you recommend that to him, like this would be a good school to go to?
So Avery was always an athlete.
Sure.
He was a great player. They actually won a state title while he was at Stang.
Yeah.
And he had gone to Nazarene Christian, which is a much smaller school. And I'm like, okay, if you want to be an athlete, whatever, maybe, you know, I believe every kid is different. So, you know, some kids belong at Stang, some kids belong at New Bedford, some kids belong at Volk. It's really up to the child and the family to decide. So he was just the type of kid that, you know, he wanted to be able to play sports, and I thought he needed to be in a bigger school if he wanted to play in college and go beyond, which he did. So, and he knew I had gone there and I had connections there, so
Sure.
It kind of was just a fit for him. So, you know, I don't know if he went because I went there,
Sure.
but I just think it was just that fit, and I think maybe I made him comfortable with that decision.
And it really worked out for him. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
And so he was, like you said, you were his coach first before anyone else's?
Yeah. Well, he had played at like the Y, like the little mighty mites
Sure,
and
sure,
stuff
sure.
like that. And you know, I would help out
Yeah.
you know, every now and then, but I wasn't like his coach.
Sure,
You know
sure,
what I mean?
sure.
Until he was a little bit older. But you know, actually, I like my kids being coached by other people sometimes, so I get to watch.
Okay.
And you know, being a dad and a coach, there's that fine line, and it's not the easiest thing.
I bet. Okay.
So yeah, so you know, Avery was out doing his own thing, and you know, he was able to play for some great coaches. Tony Esteves at the Boys and Girls Club, who's been coaching, and I coach for him now over 40 years.
Wow.
Like a great man, giving back, and again, like just those role models and having, you know, people that your kids can look up to too, that are kind of echoing the same message that's coming from your home. You know, so Avery was definitely able to benefit from that. Now my son Theo is, and you know, my son Nicholas, who's 5, he's hopefully going to as well. You know, I'm going to
Sure.
be coaching until I'm 80, I guess, because he's still only 5, but
Sure.
it's something I enjoy.
Is there a specific age range that you coach for?
So
Because you're still coaching now?
I'm still coaching now,
Yeah.
and I do like basketball training for kids. I work with kids from as young as 3 all the way through high school.
Okay. Wow.
So, you know, obviously it's different. Like 3
Sure.
to 7, I try to make it as fun as possible.
Sure.
I try to build their love in basketball, get used to be coached by someone and being around, and I enjoy that the most. Because it's just so innocent and so much fun. And I love it. That's something that, you know, as I get older and I'm trying to scale back, I don't think I could ever stop that.
Really?
That just, you know, feeds my soul. Like, I love being around kids. And again, when they make a shot or they, you know, make a basket or make a move and they're having fun, they win a race or do whatever, just those smiles means a lot. And also, like, when the training sessions are over and the tears and the hugs, you know, like, you don't want to see them like that, but it just, you know, it's just something about making that much of an impact that this child just doesn't want to go, you know. And I think that's important. I salute everybody that's out there training and coaching, and it just is important for the community and for folks to give back.
Sure.
I feel like I owe it to the city, I owe it to these kids. And so, you know, I just applaud everyone. It's not an easy thing to do. So, you know, I'm just happy I'm part of that fraternity, really.
So this is something I'm just personally interested in, but I'm sure the audience is too. This is gonna sound really weird, but you get a lot of likes on like your Facebook posts or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a lot of people that know you. Okay, would you say that a lot of people that know you now are either people that you grew up with, that you've like known your whole life, are fellow parents from when your kids go through school, or are other parents who are parents of kids that you've coached?
So, I mean,
Or a combination.
Yeah, it's a combination. Like,
Sure.
again, like we just knew so many people growing up.
Yeah.
Because my parents were in the community, my brothers, and just, I don't know. Like, we go out, and my kids are like, God, you know everyone.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah,
Because I got
yeah.
to stop every 10 seconds to say hello. My wife's family is very well known.
Sure.
So that adds to it. And
Sure.
like, you know, a lot of, it is a lot of families and people. Like, I don't really advertise when I coach and train and all that. It's all word of mouth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like parents I've come to know over the years, and make relationships with them and their children, and they pass the word, and then there's more and more, and like my father-in-law asked me one day, like, how many kids do you think you've coached and impacted over the years?
Wow.
Which is over 20, and I'm like I don't keep count, but I'm like, it got to be thousands. And not only impacting them, but other kids that I might not coach or might not be around that have seen one of my A's before J's or something, and have taken it as their mantra, or like inspired them in some kind of way. Then in my job, I talk to schools and run programs.
Sure. Yeah.
So every year I talk to thousands of kids from local high schools, elementary schools, colleges. So, I mean, I'm in contact with kids all the time.
And so it's interesting that, I guess your side job is being a coach and your primary job is running the elections, but that you're around kids so much, like that is kind of like your primary focus, or where you spend a lot of your energy, even though it's not like you're an educator, you are educating these kids, and you're a mentor to so many.
And I consider myself more a mentor than coach, right?
Sure,
Basketball's a tool.
Yeah.
Elections, when I run my programs, that's a tool to mentor and to help these kids. I mentioned my grandfather before. My grandfather was like 6'4", huge man, and he always loved the grandkids. I remember sitting on his lap and he's telling us jokes and stories and tickling us, all these things. And one of the best compliments I've ever gotten in my life is one of my cousins saying, she said it in Creole, but it was like, your mannerisms and the way you are with kids are just like him.
Really?
That's again, one of my idols. So I'm like, that's the nicest compliment I could ever get.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this man like he's just that type of person that all these kids gravitated towards. That just means a lot. I just have a gift with children. I don't know what it is. When they come into my office, they'll always smile, they'll look at me, wave, all of these things, and my staff is amazed. Yeah. And I'm just I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the trust, and our kids can sense who you are and what your heart is.
Sure.
That's something that I really enjoy.
Absolutely.
I really do.
And so we have a few more minutes left. And so you mentioned A before J's, and I want to bring that up, but thank you for bringing it up. Perfect segue. So for those who don't know what that is, what is it?
So because I coach and do all those things, I was around kids, and I was old school, so I'd get report cards. And these kids were great athletes or whatever, and their parents would be like, they're not doing good in school, they're not doing whatever. And I'm like, well, how many hours a week do they spend doing homework? Oh, I don't know. How many hours do they spend playing basketball on teams, practices? They would know that answer.
Sure.
So one of the concepts, I remember my friend Derek Baptiste and Romaine Grace had mentioned, A's before J's. So while I was coaching, I was looking for something to, kind of separate. And so I was like, you know what? That would make a great T-shirt, whatever. So we came up with, I followed their lead, and A's before J's. And myself and my partner, Frankie Barrows, who was one of my friends that grew up across the street from me in that same neighborhood, we formed A's before J's, and we would sell these T-shirts, take a portion of the proceeds, $5 from each shirt, and whatever organization was part of, what we were doing, we'd pool that money and give scholarships or give a prize or something. So when Avery won state title the senior year, students and families and teachers at Stang bought 200 T-shirts.
Wow.
And they would all wear them to the games. They played at, Boston Garden and all that, TD Garden.
Wow.
And all these kids in the stands are wearing the A's before J's shirts.
Wow.
And we were able to give a $1,000 scholarship to the players. They all decided to split it amongst the seniors, so it wasn't a lot of money, but just, again, the support that the community gave. They're wearing this around with that positive message. Academics before jump shots is what A's before J's means.
Sure.
And it's great. I still have those T-shirts around, and my 11-year-old wears his brother's shirt.
Sure.
And it just was very great to see the community kind of rally around. And I think doing that and running that program really kind of put me on the map as far as being in the community doing that work.
And not just being, like you said, a coach, but a mentor, trying to have a real concept behind it and using basketball as a tool, not just a ends or a means to an ends, but something that can help these kids see more to life.
Exactly. And a lot of my kids, they never even played ball in high school or beyond. You know what I mean? But that's not the important thing.
Yeah.
Like, I run into kids that are 20-something years old, and they'd be like, oh, remember that day I scored 14 points and everyone was clapping, and now they're grown men. You know what I mean? They're 20-something. Or the kids that I coach that will call me for advice in their 20s, or the amount of love and hugs I get when I see them out. Like, that means more to me than anything. They become great people. And I've had great players. My son Avery was great. Bryson Goodine right now is at Oklahoma and all these things. And like, I keep in touch with those kids, and but it goes beyond that and beyond them. And now a lot of them have their own kids, and they're like, oh, we want you to coach our kids, which is amazing.
That's crazy.
And again, that's a great compliment. That's a great compliment to get. Or like, when I talk to them, like, Bryson this past summer, it was like, I remember you taught me this. And I'm like, dude, you played Division I, you've played for Jim Boeheim and all these people, and you're remembering something I said. I'm just a guy from New Bedford, And again, that stuff means a lot to me. And for him to say, my son's gonna be playing for you, that speaks volumes. And I'm just really blessed. And, I always say, like, I'm the one that gains from these kids. Like, I had the honor to, hopefully make a small impact on these kids' lives, but they've made a humongous impact on my life. Like, I've learned a lot from a lot of these kids, a lot of these families. And again, I'm just, blessed to be that guy that people trust with their children.
Sure.
Because it takes a lot of trust.
Sure. And I mean, it takes a lot of energy too, right? I mean, do you feel that, or is it just like comes easily to you?
That stuff comes easy to me. Like, I don't feel tired doing that stuff.
Sure, yeah. It's not draining for you.
I am getting older,
Sure.
Like, the physical part of it, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, obviously, but there's not a moment where it's like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I'm too tired to show up for the kids. There's just never that moment. Like, I always find the energy to do that.
Sure.
And yeah, that's cool, And my wife often brings that up when she's like, oh, you got to clean up or do this or that. And I'm like, I'm tired. And she's like, well, you just went to practice with these kids, and I didn't hear you complaining. And so I just think it's funny.
Because they give you the energy. Yeah.
They really do. And again, like, to be able to see them as they get older and progress, and, people, kids have asked me to be their godfather or confirmation sponsor, and like, just be in their life still. And again, like, learning from them, because I've had kids with different challenges in their lives, and helped them through. And again, they've taught me a lot about different situations and circumstances. It's just, it really is great. And I think, you mentioned like Facebook and stuff, and I hop in and out because, there's a lot of negativity right now, but I do like to be out there, and I like to make people laugh and share inspirational stuff. And I do get responses and reactions, and I think it's legit. Like, I think it's not like clickbait and people are just whatever. Like, I think it's people genuinely care about what I think and whatever. And I'm just a guy. I only have my own opinions, right? I'm not 100% right all the time. Of course not. I'm trying to be a better man, husband, and father every single day. I'm not perfect. I'm trying to be better at my job every single day. I'm trying to be a better coach. I pay attention. I study. So, I don't have all the answers, but, I'm willing to put it out there and try to help people as much as I can.
And do your best and be honest.
Yeah. And, I give props to people like you that are young and coming up, and I've been impressed by you. And I tell people this all the time. Like, when you're so busy and you're doing so many things, sometimes you're just in the background. You don't have a chance to really express it. But I'm watching. And the same thing with like other coaches and trainers and stuff. Like, I'm watching guys that are working in the community, and I applaud them because again, some of them are like fathers like me and husbands and have their day jobs, and I know how hard it is. So like, I get really impressed. And, I met you in my office through a pastor, and you came in and we sparked a conversation, and you came back and you had researched me and I was so impressed by that. And I'm like, wow, you took the time to actually know. And, I've always like appreciated that about you. And again, I learned stuff from you. It was definitely like a give and take there,
So, man, this has been part 1. Okay. We're going to continue this conversation in part 2. Please catch us on part 2 of Wake Up New Bedford. We're going to talk a little bit more about his job, the importance of voting, and New Bedford, and our future, and some things to look forward to. Thank you so much for watching part 1 with Manny DeBrito. Catch us in part 2. Peace.
I'm running,